Dr. Ben Goertzel is the Vice Chair of Humanity Plus and one of the world's leading researchers into the creation of synthetic intelligence. I don't refer to it as artificial intelligence because, as you'll see in our conversation, when synthetic intelligence is achieved in the next few decades, their consciousness will be no more artificial than our own. Thank you again for talking to us today for a little bit. I was wondering if we could first start off talking about the development of the internet in terms of what it's become over the last 15 years and kind of how social media is changing things.
In hindsight, 20 years from now, I think we're going to look back at the internet of 2012 as the early stages of development of the global brain. By a global brain, I mean an intelligence distributed across the planet. Humans are a part of it, computers are a part of it, mobile phones are a part of it, communication spreading across the globe, spreading ideas around, leading to the origination of new ideas that nobody would ever think of on their own. As you see the progress of the internet from the original command line internet to the World Wide Web to Web 2.0 and social media, and moving on to Web 3 or 4 or 5.0 involving artificial intelligence. We're going to see the internet gradually turning into a really powerful global brain, an overall coherent, worldwide, emergent, intelligent system that all of us are part of.
Do you think that the internet itself is becoming or could become conscious?
I believe the internet itself could become a conscious, coherent, intelligent system in roughly the same sense that a human being is. I don't think the internet is going to somehow spontaneously emerge coherent intelligence. It may be intelligent right now in some sense, which is quite different from how an embodied, goal-oriented system like a human is intelligent. But for the internet to develop the sort of intelligence that people have, where you have certain goals you're trying to pursue, you try to plan out actions aimed at achieving those goals, you have a model of yourself and your relation of yourself to others, I think someone would have to program it that way. But I don't think that's impossible. I don't think someone would have to program every computer on the internet in accordance with some grand design. I would imagine some large corporation or some open source project releasing peer-to-peer software, or even some government, they could create something to serve as the sort of central global workspace of the internet's focus of consciousness, so to speak. And if someone were to explicitly program the focal center of consciousness of the internet, then you might see that affect the whole dynamics of the internet as a global system, and you might see the internet emerge as a coherent, goal-oriented consciousness on its own. I'm pretty confident some kind of global brain is going to emerge by the middle of this century. I think the time scale we're looking at is decades, not centuries. I don't think it could be years, because human behavior patterns just don't change that fast. It's conceivable someone could create a superhuman AI system in the next 5 years. My own team is working on doing it. I think we could get there within 10 years from now. But a global brain relies not just on technology, it relies on people. And people aren't going to change their whole self-image, their whole way of relating to others in a matter of a couple years. One interesting possibility is that you might first see a kind of partial global brain emerge within a certain subculture of people. It's hard for me to see my dad, for example, altering his self-image and his way of interacting with the world that much. He's almost 70, he just retired. He's kind of set in his ways. On the other hand, my 15-year-old daughter, she's eager to use any new technology that comes around. She's on the internet pretty much every waking moment that she's not in school. You could see people in her age bracket really rapidly embracing new technologies, really rapidly adapting their minds to new ways of being. You might see some sort of global brain emerge within the youth culture and the techno-geek culture a couple decades before it emerges anywhere else.
Do you think that the future of information and just development of technology is going to head in that direction, or do you think that it will still stick with a kind of a corporate base?
If the human race is going to develop in a positive direction, it's really important that open sharing of all kinds of information become more and more prevalent, that openness becomes the norm. Whether that's actually going to happen is not 100% clear to me at this time.
Yeah.
David Brin, a science fiction writer and futurist theorist, he wrote a great book called The Transparent Society. And what Brin proposed is a dichotomy between two possible directions that things may take. One is surveillance, where the overlords are watching everyone. The overlords could be the government, they could be the military, they could be big corporations, they could be all of the above. The other path is what he called surveillance, watching from below, everyone watching everyone else. In a surveillance world, sure, the government and the big companies and the military may be watching everyone, but we're watching them as they watch us. We're all watching each other. As Brin paints the picture, it's inevitable either universal surveillance or universal surveillance is going to come about. Privacy will no longer be an option. The advent of surveillance technologies of all sorts is just too powerful. We already have cameras everywhere, the ability to spy on everything on the internet and mobile phone traffic. It's just too great. We can't retain the old notion of privacy anymore, so we just got to choose. Do we want the powers that be to watch us, or do we want everyone to watch everyone? To my mind, being anti-authoritarian in attitude, I really don't like the idea of some guys in suits off in some office somewhere watching everything we do and then pouncing on us if we do something wrong. By and large, I believe if we had the capability to spy on each other, we wouldn't do it that often. There's just too much information for us to spend all our time spying on our neighbors anyway. I imagine we would adapt to the lack of privacy implicit in the surveillance future. It would require some adaptation of our self-image. It would require changes to our way of thinking about ourselves, to our whole way of being. I'm not sure these would be negative changes, however. You could see it going multiple directions. You could see surveillance enforcing some sort of conformity. Because if you're doing anything that your neighbors don't approve of, they can see you. You could also see surveillance leading to a beautiful flourishing of openness because, hey, you know, you see your neighbor acts like an idiot in the privacy of his own home, just like you do, right? So why not just
let it out,
all get along and like admit that everyone's basically a dork in private and just kind of stop fussing about it?
Absolutely.
I don't really know what path we're going to go down. It's possible that instead of the government, the military, or corporations watching everyone, it's actually an AI that watches everyone.
Oh, wow.
What if we made an AI system, say 5 times as smart as people, whose goal was just to watch over the whole world and make sure everything's okay? I think of this as an AI nanny. It could be that this is the best way out of the pickle that humanity is getting itself in. If you look at the scope of advanced technologies out there today, things like synthetic biology, nanotechnology, let alone AI, there's a lot of possibility there for nasty people to do nasty things to large numbers of people.
For sure.
Advancing technology lets us do wonderful things, but it also lets smaller and smaller groups of stupider and stupider people wreak more and more damage. How are we going to stop this from happening? How will we stop 20 years from now some group of rogue terrorists from banding together with some biologists and engineering some new virus that wipes out masses of people.
Yeah.
One possible way to stop this is to put some AI nanny in charge. Now that's scary. Part of me really hates the AI nanny idea.
Yeah.
I want to have freedom. I don't want some AI watching everything I do and telling me what I can and can't do.
Yeah.
I could be there programming another AI system, then all of a sudden the AI nanny comes down and says, wait a minute, I'm sorry, that AI is going in the wrong direction. I'm
Yeah.
afraid it may get smarter than me.
Yeah.
Your file is deleted. That's scary.
For sure.
On the other hand, the possibilities without such a system are also scary.
Mm-hmm.
We're at a somewhat frightening as well as incredibly exciting phase in human history. One way of looking at the AI nanny is as sort of a temporary thing. Maybe you could program an AI nanny system to sort of watch over humanity for a few decades,
Yeah.
or say a few centuries, with an explicit goal of getting rid of itself after a period of time. It would be a sort of singularity steward, a sort of transition manager to help us get from where we are now to the next level. It's tempting to anthropomorphize and say, well, yeah, once you put that AI nanny in charge,
Yeah.
sure, it's going to give up power. Yeah, right. When has a dictator ever given up power?
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, an AI nanny wouldn't necessarily have the same motivations and emotions that a human being does. When we say absolute power corrupts absolutely, that's really a statement about human psychology.
Yeah.
It's not a universal axiom of intelligent systems. We don't really know if it will be possible to build an AI nanny system like that.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it did prove possible to do it technically, would it be possible to do that given the existing power structures
Yeah.
on the planet? There's a hell of a lot of uncertainty ahead of us, and I'd be lying to you if I said I knew where it's all going to come out.
Of course.
As a researcher, I'm trying to build artificial intelligences that have general intelligence similar to human beings,
Yeah.
that can connect to the internet and the emerging global brain, and that have a beneficial attitude, that want to help humans and other sentient beings.
Yeah.
I think if we can build AI systems like that, that will bias the odds in favor of a positive outcome, but I don't see any guarantees.
Going back to the idea you brought up of surveillance, do you think that some of the groups like Anonymous and other groups that will emerge after them are kind of maybe the beginnings of that type of way of thought, or that kind of, way of looking at the world?
Peer-to-peer music downloading is a precursor to peer-to-peer thought downloading.
Yeah.
That will come in the future. Once we all have cranial jacks to plug into the back of our heads, you'll be able to go on BitTorrent and download new thoughts and feelings and upload them, and kind of hope you don't get a virus plugged into your mind. Similarly, sure, things like WikiLeaks and Anonymous, these are the beginnings of a surveillant future.
Yeah.
The whole question of consciousness in relation to AI is quite a confusing one,
Yeah.
and I generally prefer to ignore it. How do I know that you are conscious? I don't know
Absolutely.
that you are conscious. You could just be some sort of meat puppet put here to amuse and entertain me. I really could never tell.
Yeah.
In that sense, I'll have just as much confidence a robot is conscious as I have that you, as a human being, are conscious. And I think that's the way it's going to go down in practice.
Okay.
Once you have a humanoid robot walking around, smiling, saying, hey, how you doing? God, don't step on my foot. That
Yeah.
really hurt. I really want to go play some tennis. And I'm really worried about what happens if this Republican is elected president,
Yeah.
because he's going to take away the legal rights of us androids, and I don't
Exactly.
want that. I think once you have AIs that act like they're conscious, people are going to accept them as conscious, in the same way that we accept each other as conscious.
Yeah.
I could think a long time about whether other humans are really conscious, but ultimately that becomes boring.
For sure.
On a pragmatic basis,
Yeah.
I just assume that they are. There's another side to it, though. You can talk about first person, second person, and third person experience, where first person experience is your own subjective view of yourself as an independent actor in the world. Third person experience is a sort of objective view of others, the God's eye view, like the narrator in a novel. Second person experience is what the philosopher Martin Buber called the I-you experience. It's when you really have a feeling of communion with another person or another being. You could have that feeling with your dog, for that matter.
Yeah.
You really feel the presence of that other person in a sort of subjective way. We don't really have that feeling with computer programs or robots now. They don't feel present to us in the way that a human or a dog does.
Yeah.
But I think that feeling will come. I think we will get that subjective feeling of presence, that feeling that, yeah, there's another mind there, and our minds are bonding to each other in mind space.
Yeah.
I think when that feeling comes, we will accept AIs as conscious, autonomous agents with rights and feelings, just like we have. I tend to feel like everything in the universe is conscious in some measure, that consciousness is a property that's immanent in everything, and different things in the universe manifest consciousness in different ways.
Yeah.
Even a little particle has its own particulate species of consciousness. The human brain, of course, has a very different kind of consciousness, which includes reflective, deliberative consciousness that lets us focus on certain conscious thoughts for a long period of time. If we build an AI that has similar structures and dynamics to a human brain, broadly similar, not necessarily precisely similar, then that AI will manifest consciousness in roughly the same way that people do. It will have a reflective, deliberative theater of conscious awareness where it has thoughts and ideas bouncing around in its own mind. So I think AIs are going to be conscious in the same sense that we are, but we can't prove that because it becomes more philosophical than scientific. You also have the possibility that AI systems or global brains or other entities that may emerge that we don't yet understand, these may manifest kinds of consciousness going way beyond human consciousness as we now understand it. One idea that I've had in this regard, one new kind of consciousness that might emerge, is what I call a mindplex. A mindplex is a collection of minds that has consciousness on the emergent level of all the minds put together, but also has really intense individual consciousness on the part of each component mind within the mindplex. The human brain isn't quite that. Our neurons may have a little bit of consciousness, but not that much. Each neuron isn't sitting there thinking, should I send some electricity to that other neuron? No, I'm not really sure. I'm not in a good mood right now.
Yeah.
On the other hand, in a global brain scenario, you could have a situation where human beings, just like we are now, have our own thoughts, dreams, and aspirations, yet we're part of this overall super system, this global brain, which also has its thoughts, dreams, and aspirations. There's not necessarily a conflict there, because our thoughts and goals would be on a different level than those of the global brain. But this could become quite intense and interesting if you envision, say, the global brain being able to talk to you directly through some neural interface or something. You could have a system with consciousness on multiple levels and direct communication between those different levels. It's really hard to say what new forms of intelligence and awareness are going to come about. The only thing I'm pretty certain about is that our experience 100 years from now is going to be nothing like our experience is today. The amount of change in the next 100 years, not just in terms of technology and tools, but in terms of subjective experience, it's going to be dramatically more than we've had for the last 10,000 years since civilization started.
People, throw the term nanotechnology around quite a bit. Let's talk about what nanotechnology is and what your thoughts are on how it's going to initially help humanity and then what it will really bring about once it really starts to develop.
Nanotechnology in general refers to building things out of physical entities at the nanoscale. What's at the nanoscale is mostly molecules. If you remember Lego blocks when you were a kid, you could fit Legos together in different forms to build pretty much whatever you wanted. Similarly, if we had a nanotech molecular assembler, we could just pick up molecules, piece them together in whatever form we want, build whatever we want out of molecules. Now, pretty much all of the matter that we interact with in everyday life is built out of molecules. With a molecular assembler, which is the most ambitious form of nanotechnology that was envisioned by Eric Drexler in the 1980s, you could build anything you wanted as long as you had a plan for it. You can imagine peer-to-peer downloading of plans for physical objects. If you had a molecular assembler plugged into your laptop as a peripheral, you would download the plan for the physical object from the net, feed it into your molecular assembler, much as you would now feed a document into a printer, and out would come the object. We're already moving slightly in that direction with the advent of 3D printers. If you have something that can be made out of certain kinds of plastic or metal and that's not too large, there's a 3D printer you could buy for less than $1,000 that will let you print that in your own home based on plans that you download from the internet. 3D printers of today are just the first step toward the peer-to-peer downloadable nano-manufacturing of the future. Nanotechnology is interesting, but ultimately, nanotech is sort of wimpy. The real future will be in femtotech. Nanotech is building things out of molecules on the nanometer scale. Why can't we also build things out of elementary particles at the femtometer scale?
Wow.
Build things out of quarks, gluons, electrons, and muons directly. This gives us a lot of possibilities beyond what you could build with molecules. It sort of stretches our current physics. But I think ultimately that's where things are going. Nanotech is not the end.
Yeah.
Nanotech itself is just the next step. After that we go to femtotech. After that, it's not clear if you can go further. That depends on physics that we don't know anymore.
Yeah.
But there's a real long way to go beyond what we're doing now, like bolting together machines with screws and screwdrivers. The technological singularity is a point in time when scientific and technological advance becomes so fast that the human mind can't keep up at all. Imagine a new scientific revolution every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
An amazing new technology coming out every half minute. At that point, the legacy human mind is left in the dust. We're not necessarily going to get truly infinite advancement. That's a mathematical approximation. We could get a rate of advancement that feels infinite from the point of view of the human mind.
Yeah.
The big question is, what happened next? Werner Vinge, the science fiction writer who coined the term technological singularity, he felt the singularity was the horizon of our knowledge. Werner Vinge felt that whatever comes after the singularity, we have no way of knowing it at all.
Yeah.
The human mind just can't predict what comes afterwards. Ray Kurzweil, whose book The Singularity is Near brought the notion of the singularity to the public. Ray Kurzweil's view of the singularity is a bit tamer and more mellow. Kurzweil appears to see the singularity as being a lot like the world we have now, but with no death and disease, no shortages of energy, and better technology for everyone. That's a wonderful vision. I tend more toward Vinge's perspective. I would suspect once we've created AIs that are 10 times as smart as us, let alone 10 trillion times as smart as us. Who the hell knows what these AIs are going to do? How could we possibly predict?
Yeah.
That would be like a cockroach trying to predict the success of Windows version 8. Human beings will not even be able to understand what the issues are, what the different possibilities are,
Yeah.
let alone make a rational choice among the different options. The interesting question to me, as a human being, is to what extent we can gradually transcend our current condition.
Yeah.
To what extent can human beings gradually improve themselves into something transhuman that is capable of participating in the post-singularity world?
Yeah.
Even once you have amazingly superhuman beings creating worlds that legacy humans can't comprehend, you may still have human beings in their current form living and existing and having a great time, just as now we still have ants, bacteria, dogs, apes, and so forth.
Yeah.
I don't take it for granted that superhuman minds will want to stomp out all the pesky little humans.
Yeah.
Why would they bother? It seems more likely to me they may go off somewhere else. They'll become black holes. They'll go in spaceships and search for the other civilizations. They will do things that we can't even understand and won't worry about. Or maybe they'll keep us around as pets in some kind of human preserve. You can imagine making multiple copies of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Make one copy that stays a legacy human, one that's twice as smart, one that's 4 times as smart, one that's 8 times as smart, and so on. At the end of the chain, you have an amazingly superhuman version of yourself.
Wow.
At the beginning of the chain, you have something like you are today. Each element of this chain of future yous would communicate with its neighbors in the chain,
Yeah.
but would not be able to understand the ones vastly stupider or vastly more intelligent than itself. There's a lot of possibilities out there.
Yeah. Do you think that once this all really starts to happen, essentially that there would be people that would totally meld with the technology, some people who would simply use the higher components of the technology, and do you think that there will be a reaction of people who almost would turn away from technology because of where things are heading?
What I would like to see is freedom.
Yeah.
I would like to see people and non-human animals able to choose their own relationship with advancing technology. What would people choose if given that freedom? I imagine very few people would actually choose to ignore the amazing new technology and live in the old way. Right now we have people such as the Amish and such as Stone Age tribes people in Africa or Brazil who do choose to retain an old-fashioned way of life. But it's a pretty small minority of the Earth's population.
Yeah.
I envision that trend continuing. I don't think very many people are going to eschew all the conveniences of modern life. When you come down to it, dying when you get old sucks. Getting sick sucks. Having to work at a job you don't like to make money to buy food and pay your mortgage isn't that great. When there's a possibility of a different kind of life, almost everyone is going to take it. You may have a few holdouts, but they're going to be a sideshow like the Amish of today. It's kind of telling. You have a group like the Taliban in the Middle East, which says they want to roll back to the 1400s, yet they use email, they use cell phones. Bin Laden had a TV with a bunch of porn videos in his house.
Mm-hmm.
Even the people today who are advocating a return to the old ways and the abdication of modern technology, even these people are using modern tech just like everyone else because it's just a lot more convenient. It actually makes your life better. Education, on the other hand, starts to seem even more important in the light of the singularity. If we're going to have these superhuman AIs and synthetically engineered viruses and nanobots all over, we really want to have an educated population that can understand what these things are all about.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had superhuman robots coming into a population of tribesmen in the Kalahari. They're going to have no idea how to deal with it.
Yeah.
If there's a difficult decision to make, they're going to make it basically at random. They're not going to understand what's going on. The more education humanity as a whole has, the better humanity will be able to collectively deal with these new technologies as they come about. So I don't think the singularity obsoletes all our other concerns, but I do think it directs our focus in particular ways.
Do you think that we will make it through the difficulties our civilization currently faces so that we do get to experience the singularity and continue our evolution into the cosmos?
I'm an optimist at heart. As a human being, I'm very optimistic. I have a good feeling in my gut, in my heart, about the future of humanity. My gut feeling is that most of us are going to get to share in all these wonderful things that technology will bring about. However, I couldn't argue for that rationally. I couldn't sit down and make a chart showing all the different possibilities, weighting them with probability values, and make a rational argument as to why things are going to be good rather than bad. If I sit down and try to rationally calculate things about the future, I quickly come to the conclusion that we have no idea what's going to happen. On a rational basis, there's a massive amount of uncertainty ahead.
Yeah.
But as a human being, on a gut level, I feel optimistic about it.
In the United States, the civil rights debates of the past focused on the freedoms of African Americans. Today, those debates are being held in regards to same-sex marriage. In the next few decades, the debate will be whether or not androids and other synthetic intelligence should have the same rights as humans. In my opinion, consciousness is consciousness, be it biological or synthetic.